a world where we have everything and it's still not enough, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there's more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old push your way through and claim the deeper, more meaningful life that's calling you.
That's what we invite you to explore with us.
We're your hosts,
Stephanie Allen
and Maren. And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Yay!
Welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. My name is Maren. I'm here with my co-host, Stephanie. And today we're talking about success and the thing that nobody tells you about success. And we were talking about this before we got on. The thing that nobody tells us about success is that when you actually achieve it, it can be the loneliest and most misunderstood moment of your life. And that may sound dramatic, but here's the thing. When you finally climb that mountain and you get there and you're at the top and you've achieved all this stuff, most people, you've heard Steve Jobs talk about this. I just listened to Alex Hormozi talking about this, where he said he has an apathy issue. It's because you achieve all that outer stuff and you still feel empty and you feel misunderstood because everybody else is still in achievement mode. Everyone else is still climbing the ladder and you're like, I've done that. And I'm it's not fulfilling my soul.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been told something and we follow the directions. We get product and there's something missing. And we don't quite know what that is. Because I feel like a lot of times we are focused on the outer and not integrating that internal aspect of our soul. Well, what is it that my soul is seeking? What is it that my heart cares about? It isn't, yes, we can care about the outer. And is there something else as we're climbing and going, we're kind of putting aside the internal longings too, just because we're so focused on the external sometimes. That by the time we get there, we go, oh, I'm still missing something.
Yeah.
It's like we lost a friend down at the bottom of the hill.
I think you gave us a huge key right there in saying we take our own stuff and we put it to the side. And we're trained to do that. Literally, we're being trained from a very young age through our education, through everything, to not pay attention to our own longings, to not
our own needs,
our own longings, even our own gifts, or maybe especially our own gifts. And I think about we've interviewed several people on this podcast who were quote unquote ADHD. And because they lived at a time when they were raised at a time when that was not a diagnosis, they had to figure out what that meant for them and how to use that in their lives. And it actually was the greatest gift possible. I'm thinking of Vicky Keith, who lives in Canada, and she's one of the top. I don't remember what podcast we interviewed her on, and go back and listen to it because it is amazing listening to what she achieved, because her gift, a gift of hers, was that she was ADHD.
Wouldn't the world be so much healthier and happier if we created space to discover first of all, what are my gifts? What are my strengths? Because we all, where I'm strong, someone else is weak. Where someone else is strong, I'm weak. And this is why when we come together and collaborate and connect, we all raise each other up, because there's different gifts. But a lot of times what I've seen is that because we don't know our gifts, we're following the prescription of how to get to someplace on somebody else's gifts.
Yeah.
And we can effort it, of course, and it can work. And we have maybe forgotten that we also have a different way of doing something that also would work, that would give us meaning and fulfillment and joy and upliftment.
Again, I think you've given us a huge key, because if I'm following somebody else's prescription of what's important to what it means, what meaning is in my life. Here's what success means. It means you have the right house and the right car and the right wife and the right job and the right this and the right that. And I followed all of those things and I get to the top of that mountain. It's not going to be very fulfilling because it wasn't yours.
Mhm.
And so if each of us, what a different world we would live in out there, meaning out in the outer world and also inside. Because if we're actually trained from the beginning that that's mine, what is it that's yours? I don't know. You know, one of the things I've really noticed with my clients is that I ask them, what do you want? And that's the huge thing. They don't know. I don't even know what I
Isn't
want.
that the truth? Or we don't know what our needs are.
Yeah.
What do I need? And we tend to think about physical needs. So sometimes someone say, "Oh, I've got everything I need." Well,
Yeah.
maybe physically, financially and physically, but do you have emotional needs met? Do you even know what your emotional needs are? Like, let's even break it down. Do we even know what our emotional and mental and even spiritual needs are? There's so many different levels of needs. It's not
Yeah.
just about food, water, shelter, sex, the physical. That would be more of our animal nature, which is not about making that wrong. It's just that that's our survival. Once we move up to a level of where we are not only surviving, we might be financially thriving or physically thriving, but there's something else missing. It's usually a need that is unmet, and it's something that's hidden. It's the internal aspect that nobody sees, and it's going to be different and unique to each and every one of us.
And I think that the flags for us are that we're feeling empty,
Mhm.
that we're feeling I mentioned, the Alex Hormozi. So he is a super successful, very young man. By the time he was like 35, 36, he had everything, right? He had accomplished it all, done it all. And I heard an interview with him where he started off with saying, I have an apathy problem. That's a flag. That's a and what I
Mhm.
loved about him was that he was interested in diving into it. He wants to know more. He's not just checking out. And I think that in our world, admitting that we have an apathy problem is a huge deal, especially for somebody who's super successful. It's like, how could you? How dare you
Mhm. And I think I
be
would also
successful?
ask a question on him as saying, "Well, what do you mean apathy? Tell me what apathy means to you." Because when I look at the yin and the yang, the yang is what we need to be able to get up out of bed in the morning and go, go, go. But if you were like that all the time, you would not be able to sleep at night. And guess what? I bet you most of you out there cannot sleep because we're
Mm.
so focused on the productivity in the outer world, go, 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 the caffeine, the things that get us all revved up, that by the time you hit the bed, you're like, I can't sleep. My
Yeah,
mind is
the
going.
mind is
Yeah,
racing.
we need that internal reflection too, and so I would probably ask a little bit more questions about why he feels like he's apathetic, or
Well,
what does that even mean to him?
yeah. And so it's not even about him, right? I just realized that so many people were numbing out. As a society, one of the issues that is become huge is the number of drugs, that how often people
Oh
are
my god.
scrolling, the online games, just
Mhm.
all of the places that we go to numb out.
Yeah, the
And
dopamine fixes.
yes, and that's where what I was listening to him talk about and what I liked about him was that he was like, "I wanna know more, I wanna understand it." And so as you all are listening to this, and this is something I'm looking at for myself of because there are still oh my god, there are still places I check out, right? Like, I just don't even wanna deal with it. I'm gonna, like, binge watch some TV show or eat tons of chocolate or whatever my vice
Mhm.
is. And if I could just take a moment and break that pattern and get to the place where I could ask that great question. Like you said, I would ask him another question. Great. Let's ask me another question, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what does it mean? Why do you want to numb out?
Yeah, 'cause maybe it's numbing out, or maybe it's literally stopping and creating some space to reflect.
Mm.
We do need the pause to just go, "Wait a minute. Hmm, is this really what my heart, my soul, my mind, my emotions, like, what's really going on? What are my needs? And is this just going on the same trajectory as I've always gone, or is this really what I need?"
Mm. And I think for the highly successful person, and every single one of you out there, it's in some place in your life you're highly successful. So looking at that, and how is that particular success fulfilling to you?
Mhm.
Because we can climb the entire mountain, do all of the stuff without the connection to our internal. And then it feels exceedingly empty and alone up there. And then we shame ourselves, "Oh, maybe I climbed the wrong mountain," or all the stuff. The other option is to do the inner work in parallel, so that we are knowing ourselves and we're getting to know ourselves more and more and more, so that the
Yeah,
successes don't feel so empty. They actually they feel rewarding
and
as we grow.
sometimes, Maren, like, when I work with somebody,
Mhm.
and, like, kinda what we're talking about, like, what does success mean to you? What are your gifts or your strengths? I think there's a lot of times when we don't know what our strengths are, or we've made our strengths and our gifts wrong.
Yes.
So, just looking at, like, perhaps an inquiry of asking some people close to you, like, what am I good at? What am I strong? Where are my gifts? What are my strengths?
I wanna distinguish between strengths and skills, gifts and
Mm,
skills,
great.
because recently I worked with a woman who her skill set, she had trained herself to be really, really good with numbers, to be able to do budgets and do, like, all the stuff. And so when we were talking about her gifts, she listed that. And then as we started to peel that onion a little bit more, she does the numbers so that she can communicate, so that she can be in a relationship with people who do numbers, because her huge gifts are all around people. She loves people, she loves creating teams, she just wants everything to do with, like, let's make the team as functional as possible. That's her true gift.
So what I'm understanding is that she studied the skill set of
Yes.
learning numbers so she could speak the language of those that she loves.
Exactly. So that she when think about building a team. In order to build a really truly robust team that all works well together, as the person who's bringing those people together, you actually have to know a little bit about each of those things that they do. You don't have to be completely brilliant in them, because then that takes away, right? You need to know enough to speak that person's language.
Mhm.
And so she had gotten confused between, I do this so that I can bring people together, and I do this and it's my gift. And when she got that and she realized, like, "Oh, I have a lot of different skills because my gift is bringing people together, and that matters to me." Now all
Mhm.
of a sudden she's gone a totally different trajectory, and she's so excited about bringing people together, and she's more interested in building those skills because she was completely burnt out. I'm like, she's like, "I know that my gifts are numbers, and I don't wanna see another spreadsheet." Well, let's talk about that, because that's kind of a red flag. If you don't wanna see another spreadsheet, maybe it's
Yeah.
not your gift, right? Or maybe you're burned out on it. Like, there's lots of roads we could go down with that. And for her, it was realizing that her true gift was people.
Yeah.
Like, creating relationships and wanting to go deeply into understanding people, so that she actually built skills in those areas.
Yeah. So perhaps those of you that are listening out there, maybe make a list of what matters to you,
Mm.
what's important to you, and what skills would be needed to do that. And also recognize where your gifts are and your strengths are, because they may or may not be related to the skill sets, just like Maren was speaking of, and then looking at, like, who do you know, or what do you need to learn, or what do you need to let go of so that it can get you there.
And I oftentimes our gifts are something that comes so easily to us that we dismiss it,
Mhm.
just like she was doing. She's like, "Well, yeah, of course it's people.
It's
Great. Let's
easy.
acknowledge that."
It's natural.
Right? She thought she had to do all this other work. And when she let that other work go and said, "Oh, oh, I get to just play with people? Oh my
Yeah,
god,
so
I'm
it's kinda
so
like
excited."
it's like when other people value something
Mm.
and you don't fit into that way, we make ourselves wrong with it.
What do you
Meaning
mean? Can
if
you give me an example?
somebody else values being organized and focused. I'm
Mm.
just using the ADHD example. Someone really values that you gotta sit down, you gotta be still, you gotta focus, you gotta, get things done and organize things, and that is not your strength. So we get labeled as ADHD instead of saying, "Well, what is your strength?" "Well, my strength is people. My strength is talking and connecting people and being out there and being social." You can see how if you're in a relationship with somebody who you value, that's organizing and detail oriented, you may get projected on that you are ADHD instead of saying, "No, actually, I'm really good at bringing people together and really understanding people and serving people."
Yeah, to somebody else, you look scattered,
Right.
and because they're not seeing the full gift. And
They're
we're
not
not seeing that's the biggest thing is we're not seeing our full gifts because we are so to go back to I'm gonna I'm gonna bring this together with what we're talking about at the beginning of, success, feeling empty. And there is a piece of it that's our gifts and our strengths. I think there's another piece of it that is we are meant to keep peeling the layers of the onion. If you've ever seen Shrek, it's one of my favorite scenes. I'm an onion, gotta peel the onion, right?
right.
And we are trained in this society that there's some end point, some magical end point. That I hit this magical end point and poof, everything's gonna be what? I don't even know what.
Yeah. It's like the
And
one
it's
and done. It's a
the
one and
one
done,
and
and it's not a
done.
one and done. It's an
It's
evolution.
not. It's an ongoing process, and the
Mhm.
process can be magical when we're living in our gifts and our strengths, and we're doing it from that place of really the both you like you were talking about earlier, the outer, the yin, the
Mhm.
outer, the yang, and the inner, the yin.
Yeah.
And in our culture, as you were saying, we don't value that inner. We don't give it the space. So we end up
We don't value it. Exactly. What we don't see, we don't value.
mm,
It doesn't
true.
exist unless we see it. But
So
yet
I
it's
think
the internal that creates the external.
that's a great exercise. Is like what is it that I'm not seeing that offers value? And like what did I not see today that was valuable? I know that sounds like a
So
really
yeah,
strange question.
give an example of that, Maren.
Okay. So at the end of the day, one of my regular exercises is to do flow writing at the end of my day. It's kind of like morning pages, except I guess evening pages. So what that does for me is by the time I get to my second or third page, I'm writing things that I didn't consciously necessarily notice throughout the day. So I'm grateful for I love those. I'm like 5 things you're grateful for. And if you write down 5 things you're grateful for, you're gonna stay on the surface of like, okay, I'm grateful for, the money I made today, my husband, my dogs, the taking a walk this morning, and all those things are awesome and wonderful. And I'm not saying not to be grateful for them. What I'm saying is that there's some hidden stuff in your life that is where the real magic lies. And you're the only one who knows what that is. And so doing a journaling exercise, the magic of morning pages or evening pages as I do them, is that you flow right for 3 pages or for 5 to 10 minutes. And what happens is at the beginning, your conscious mind is in charge and you're writing. And then you get past the conscious mind and your subconscious starts to come through and it shifts. And so you start to notice things that stuff comes up that you haven't, that your conscious mind has filtered out because it doesn't make sense. It's not proper. It's all, whatever the stuff is, right? And guess what? That's where the magic lives.
Mm.
So it may not be the example you were looking for. And that's how I get to my own magic at the end of each day and get include the inner in a regular practice in my day.
I remember one time for me, as an example of an internal, is that this is an external and internal. I was in a situation where I was going to react. I was really upset. And I stopped and I
Mm.
listened. And I remembered what my intention is, meaning, hey, I want to really be connected to this person. Then what needs to happen? What would be the most kind and noble thing to do? So I asked a question internally. And then I had to listen. I had to stop. I had to pause.
Mm.
And then it created the space for me then to make a different outer action. So that's what nobody saw what was going on inside me. And I was observing what was going on inside by also asking a question to my internal self, which then created a different outer action. That's why when I mean the internal often and almost always creates our outer reality. So a lot of times we can be unconscious about the outer reality. We're just kind of going along following a prescription. There's kind of on the surface, we haven't really dropped in to go, wait a minute, is this aligned with my my mental needs? Is this aligned with my values, my ethics? Is this aligned with my emotional
And
need
who you want to become.
and who I
Is it
want to become? Yeah.
because one of the things I know about you is that are you're wanting to continue to become a more loving person, and you're one of the most loving people that I know, and that's because this is something that you work on. So when I hear you give us that example, it's exactly that because that's important to you. That's who you want to become. You stopped and you asked that question. And that's really powerful. I love that example. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. And so asking those internal questions, and it does need to start with, well, who do I want to become? Because you can't stop and ask a question from that place until you actually know that,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
And that
On that.
can be a very fun journey to explore.
Yeah, so to be open to discovering who you are. I think a lot of times the dangerous thing that I can say to myself is, "Oh, well, I already know who I am. I know what I'm good at. I know what
Mm.
I'm not." Well, what if there's no space for possibility? Like, to allow some space for, like, "Yeah, I'm gonna look at that. I'm gonna create some space to discover deeper and deeper and deeper levels of who I am and why I'm here."
And what if it's an ongoing
Yeah.
morphing, right? We assume that it's like static. Who I am is some static thing, and it's not. We know that from anytime we do any outer exercise. Say, for example, I want to learn a language, right? If I kept defining myself as the same person, then I would never learn the language. So if I want to learn Spanish and I'm not somebody who speaks Spanish, and then I start to learn Spanish, now I am no longer that same identity, right? I'm not the person who knows no Spanish. I know a little bit of Spanish, and I have to keep upping my identity and
Mhm.
changing who I believe that I am. Otherwise, I'll stay stuck. And we see that very clearly with something like Spanish. You're like, duh. And yet that's exactly what we do with our persona. Well, that's just who I am.
Mhm.
You're sure about that? Because it doesn't have to be. It's just the words you're telling yourself, like,
Right.
I'm somebody who doesn't speak Spanish. So you can do something about that. You can change it. And
If and that's aligned with your higher
yes.
vision. So that's the thing of, like, to stop and even ask yourself, "Who am I doing this for?
Mm.
Why am I doing this?"
That can be a really scary question.
It can be. So be
Yeah.
gentle with yourself and just, don't necessarily look for an absolute answer, like, just hold the question. Be curious.
That's key. That's key. I know it sounds simple and it's not easy.
Mhm.
It's simple, it's not easy, and it's amazingly powerful. So if
Yeah.
you want something that can really change your life, first of all, hold on for the ride because it will change your life. And, step up and do some of those simple, not easy things like asking those questions. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion. If you've enjoyed it, we'd love to hear from you. What got you thinking? What were some of your favorite questions? And where are you in this whole success conversation? Let us know. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, all at the Soulful Leaders. And we'll see you in a couple weeks on the
Mhm.
Soulful Leader podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
And Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.